the lord of endless indulgence and unbridled pleasure. Graz'zt, the ultimate hedonist, a dark prince who views the universe as his playground, and one day he hopes to claim it all as his own. A cosmos where every creature exists solely to serve his whims, where his dominance is absolute. Graz'zt is not just any demon prince, he is one of the most cunning and irresistibly alluring beings in all of the layers of the abyss and beyond. A darkly handsome, ebon-skinned man towering nearly 9 feet tall. He has slightly pointed ears, yellow fangs, and green glowing eyes. He has 2 6-fingered hands that reveal his true demonic nature. Among the demon princes, none appear more human than Graz'zt. He is the patron of tyrants and despots. He rules with an iron fist across 3 layers of the abyss, captivating all who dare to look upon him. After the fall of the Obratists and their flight to the secret corners of the abyss, this endless realm of evil and chaos spent an unknown epoch in even greater turmoil than before. For the realm was now without its masters, and those few Oberith lords who survived the murderous wrath of the Queen of Chaos, the war with the forces of law and the Windukes, and the final invasion of the Eladrin host into the war-torn abyss had been forced into hiding, and were in no condition to reassert their rule. In their absence, their Tanari former vassals fell to war and bickering among themselves. The mantle of Prince of Demons was their prize, and while many powerful demons took portions of abyssal layers in their race for this crown, few could yet claim rulership over an entire abyssal layer, for the infighting amongst demons and their followers was too great, and some of the most powerful demon lords at this time retreated, content to cower in their hidden corners, like Dagon and Pazuzu. It was a time of betrayal and ruin such the abyss had never seen before. As this time settled over the abyss, one of those who had otherwise remained apart from the squabble was mysterious Pale Knight, an Oberith lord who dwelt in a twisted tower of bone on the 600th layer of the abyss, a realm maddening enough in its endless mazes to render it relatively untouched by the demon wars. Pale Knight knew of these squabbles, and she knew that whoever could claim it would be among the most powerful forces in the abyss. Yet she did not wish to enter the war, and the power afforded a prince wasn't enough for her. So she beckoned something to her realm to impregnate her, so she could sire her own brood of children to vie for the crown. If one of them could become the Prince of Demons, Pale Knight would thus become their queen. The exact nature of the entity that Pale Knight ensnared and mated with has long been the subject of debate among scholars. Those within their own desires and allegiances invoke names such as Asmodeus, Loki, Set, or even one of the ancient Bernaloths. Others maintain that she chose as her mate the patriarch of an ancient race of immortal warriors from an alternate reality, and some hold it was the abyss itself Pale Knight called into her vault. A few ancient and ageless scholars believe that Pale Knight was not, in fact, the aggressor in this matter, but instead one of the old gods themselves, a cosmic entity of 1,000 names and crawling chaos, who visited Pale Knight from his own court at the center of the universe, leaving her impregnated in an attempt to spawn a race of demons who would fulfill a noble role in his own dire plans for reality. What is certain is that Pale Knight gave birth to countless monsters and demons when she came to term an unknown age later. Many of her spawn died immediately, slain by their countless kin, or later in the abyss itself by voracious predators. Very few of them rose in power enough to become anything of note. Yet among all these spawn, only one would go on to greatness. Only one would become powerful enough to be a contender for the throne of the abyss. Only one would surpass even the mind-boggling power commanded by his Oberith mother. That child was Graz'zt, the Dark Prince of the Abyss. Graz'zt is a schemer of the Abyss, who is an expert in trickery, and as follows his personality, his origins are also extremely mysterious. This Pale Knight origin is one great possibility for the origin of Graz'zt, but there is an additional theory that is presented in both 4th and 5th edition. This tells that Graz'zt was once an archdevil and a trusted advisor to Asmodeus. Asmodeus charged Graz'zt with invading the Abyss and seizing the evil seed that created it, the seed that Tharizdun had planted. This is all according to 4th edition's ethos of how the Abyss was created. If you'd like to see more about that, check out my video on Tharizdun and Pazuzu. Graz'zt's initial invasion was successful, and he managed to seize 3 of the layers. However, pressure from Orcus and Demogorgon, who are Graz'zt's arch enemies no matter what edition you're looking at, stalled Graz'zt's descent toward the heart of evil. Graz'zt eventually rejected his heritage as a devil and turned the conquered territory into his own kingdom. Corrupted by the Abyss, he became one of the most powerful demon princes. 5th edition is much more in line with the 4th edition lore. It says, sages have put forth ideas for why demons consider the denizens of the 9 hells as their greatest threat to their design for the cosmos. Some researchers claim to have uncovered evidence that the animosity between the demons and the devils has its roots in a primeval time when Graz'zt, now a demon lord, was a member of the devils hierarchy. As the hypothesis goes, Graz'zt wasn't satisfied with the prospect of being eternally subservient to Asmodeus in the Hells, where only one devil can claim absolute rulership. The Abyss offers greater freedom to those who are powerful enough to carve out a realm for themselves, and after forsaking his status in the Hells, that's exactly what Graz'zt did. Those who find the idea plausible hope that Graz'zt's deflection is a unique event never to be repeated. If that turns out not to be the case, another such shift could be a major turning point in the Blood War. Regardless of how Graz'zt ended up in the Abyss, created or defected, he comes quickly into power, and he makes his home on 3 separate planes that he owns, the triple realm of Azzagrat. As far as layers of the Abyss go, this is a welcoming place. The chattering markets and writhing pleasure palaces of Azzagrat draw visitors from around the Great Wheel. They come seeking obscure magical lore or perverse delights unavailable anywhere else, confident in the safety of the most germane society in the Abyss, where even demons present a veneer of civility and courtly comedy. But for all its reputation for safety, Azzagrat holds just as many dangers as any layer of the Abyss, and perhaps a good deal more. These 3 layers were woven together by the demon lord Graz'zt. This is the largest empire in all of the Abyss, which he built through a combination of political manipulation and cunning intelligence. All of the inhabitants of Azzagrat obey the will of Prince Graz'zt because their fortunes rise with his, and because he has eliminated all loyal inhabitants over the course of generations. The theme of Azzagrat is one of hidden danger beneath a cosmopolitan surface. The layer's cities are all like mazes, and its forests are intractable, with shadows and lurking killers. If Azzagrat at first appears sate, it does only to draw you in. Everything on the gloomy 45th layer of the Abyss is somehow doused or subdued, taking on an equally gray pallor. 3 things bind the layers: massive ovens of green flame that serve as gates, the River of Salt, and the triple city of Zelatar, which exists simultaneously on all 3 layers. It has been said that, like his triple realm, Graz'zt maintains thrice the number of plots and goals as any other demon lord. Graz'zt is certainly among the most scheming and plotting of his kin. Those who seek to particularly insult the Dark Prince have used his love of plots and politics to compare him to an archdevil, or have referred to his triple realm of Azzagrat as the Little Hells. Most of those who insult the Dark Prince publicly in such a manner do not survive long. Although Graz'zt participates in the Blood War, his true interests are closer to home. He is much more comfortable at manipulation, allying with and betraying fellow demon lords than anything else, and he has perfected these skills to a point where he is now the only demon lord in the Abyss not to only completely command more than 1 layer of the Abyss, but to retain command of this triple realm for centuries, despite the fact that he spent several years imprisoned on the material plane, something we'll go over later. Through all the history and rise with all the other demon lords, Graz'zt has found 2 great enemies. Graz'zt's greatest rival is Demogorgon, perhaps the most powerful demon lord in raw strength, and he would like nothing more than to destroy Demogorgon and claim his title as Prince of Demons. He also shares a very similar enmity for Orcus. The 3 of them are in contention at all times for the most powerful demon lord, each with different skills. Graz'zt being the weakest, he compensates for his lack of strength with intelligence, trickery, and manipulation. Graz'zt's goal is nothing less than the total conquest of the Abyss. Again, he despises the fact that Demogorgon is known as the Prince of Demons, and while he hasn't been able to achieve the defeat of Demogorgon or Orcus, he has made quite a bit of headway into his goals. His most recent triumph was the deposing of the Demon Prince of Madness, Adamarcus. Graz'zt turned Adamarcus' own son, Aethix, against him, though Graz'zt was unable to conquer his realm. Graz'zt also holds a war of intrigue, sabotage, and slander against Malancantha. An abyssal rumor holds that an all-out war between their realms is drawing nigh. Although a master tactician and accomplished swordsman, Graz'zt's true strengths lie in seduction and guile. It is not by force alone he realizes that one can win control, but by controlling those who think they are in control. He enjoys the notion that he is the most intelligent, cunning creature in the abyss, with only a few other demons that can match his wit. Tales are told among the common folk that a dark-skinned fiend sometimes visits witches and sorcerers, granting them both sexual favors and magic powers. Graz'zt is the truth of that legend. A deeply erotic being, the Dark Prince never goes anywhere without a retinue of female monsters, usually lamias, succubi, or meriliths. He is dangerously charming and seductive, and he speaks with such eloquence and grandeur that one might think him a devil, never a demon. Unlike many other demon princes, Graz'zt pays a great deal of attention through spies to what is going on in the material plane. He is very fond of trading favors with mortals, giving aid or information for services to be demanded later. And undoubtedly his most interesting alliance with any mortal on the material plane is the Witch Queen Iggwilv, also known as Tasha, who wrote the book chronicling demon lords such as Graz'zt in the Demonomicon. For countless ages, Graz'zt enjoyed his trips to the material plane, for invariably those who sought his aid underestimated him and became little more than tools for the Dark Prince to use in furthering his own goals. This changed with Iggwilv. The Witch Queen had, of course, been drawn to Graz'zt's attention long before she summoned him. She had caught his eye not just with her shapely form and bewitching eyes, but for her ruthless treachery. Here was a mortal woman whose capacity for betrayal and deception allowed her to manipulate powerful wizards and rule entire nations. Graz'zt had never conceived of the possibility that her deceived victims could extend to those as powerful as himself. And when he answered her call to the lost caverns of Socanth, he found himself imprisoned on the material plane by her magic. Yet so potent were Iggwilv's charms and promises that Graz'zt himself fell for her words, and the two became lovers. From this union, nations and gods were born. Graz'zt realized he had come upon his match in the arena of treachery and domination, and he began to lust for freedom. He played the subservient minion until Iggwilv faltered in her control. Graz'zt struck, yet even in her moment of weakness, Iggwilv was a potent foe. She managed to slay Graz'zt by expending every spell, artifact, and ally she had at her disposal, and she lost her empire in the ensuing battle. But Graz'zt was banished back to the Abyss for a century, while he recovered from his humiliating death and defeat. Iggwilv went into hiding, and it was only when Graz'zt captured and imprisoned her in his Argent Palace that he regained his stolen power, and then some. Iggwilv's time of servitude to Graz'zt was much shorter than his was under her. She too escaped not long after being captured, and you'd think after all of that, these two would be sworn enemies. But today, the two have to a certain extent come to terms, and they retain a love-hate relationship where each constantly seeks to use the other to gain power in their respective domains. Since his time with Iggwilv, Graz'zt has grown more cautious in his dealings with mortals, and he has encouraged the growth of small cults in the material plane. In this way, those who seek his advice instead seek out his priests. Graz'zt uses lamias and succubi, or other alluring temptresses, who themselves are no stranger to treachery and deception. This cult has become to be known as the Chosen. Graz'zt's clergy is spread throughout dozens of worlds, yet the religion's foundation can be found within the walls of his own capital city of Zelatar in the Abyss. Mortals who make their pilgrimage to Zelatar visit the Grand Shrine, a building run by Lamia priests. Yet the true command of his cult is the Chosen's Tabernacle, a profane cathedral found in the middle of Graz'zt's city, Galengast. Here, the faith's high priestess, a Lelutu demon named Lavendith, tends to the needs of the cult and to the needs of her lord, for she is currently Graz'zt's favorite consort. Mortals are allowed within the vaulted walls of the Chosen's Tabernacle only as sacrifices. One of the most horrific rituals practiced by the cult of Graz'zt is the Hollow Feast. This hideous rite is used under two conditions: when a worshipper of Graz'zt wants to become one of the Dark Prince's thralls, or when a priest fails to convert an intended sacrifice. In both cases, the worshipper to be cleansed is affixed nude to an iron flame by a number of chains and hooks. He is then left to fast for several days, during which times he must recite various sacred prayers to the Dark Prince Prince, in which he asks for benediction. Once a day, other cultists visit to give the worshipper a few sips of water, but during this time, the worshipper is allowed no food. Each morning the fast progresses, the hooks and chains that bind him are tightened, and each day the worshipper needs to make a DC 30 charisma check to determine he has attracted Graz'zt's attention. Once successful, Graz'zt notices and sends one of his minions to bless the worshipper. The final segment of the hollow feast involves the minion imbibing vials of acid and then kissing the supplicant, during which time she passes the acid into the supplicant's mouth, who must endure a number of kisses equal to the number of days they have been spent fasting before they are deemed cleansed. Graz'zt enjoys these blood sacrifices that are made in his name, and even sexual rites are important in services dedicated to him. His temples are dark, secluded places within that Argent Palace, a grandiose structure in the city of Zelatar found within his abyssal domain. Graz'zt's maddening influence radiates outward in a tangible ripple, warping reality around him. Given enough time in a single location, Graz'zt can twist it with his madness. His lair is a den of ostentation and hedonism. It is adorned with finery and decorations so decadent that even the wealthiest of mortals would blush at the excess. He surrounds himself with these fine things and the most attractive of servants, and he adorns himself in silks and leathers, both striking and disturbing in their workmanship. His lair and those of his cultists are pleasure palaces where nothing is forbidden, save moderation or kindness. The Dark Prince considers restriction the only sin. And all this talk of charm and subtle manipulation, Graz'zt is also a terrible violence when provoked. He wields a wavy, razor-edged blade dripping acid, the wave of sorrow. Graz'zt is also a master of dominating his enemies on the battlefield, who he directs to fight on his behalf. He has a vast repertoire of spell-like abilities, so vast that many assume that he is in fact a sorcerer or wizard, and he does not hesitate to use these spell-like abilities. This, combined with his prowess in melee with his acidic sword, makes him an extremely deadly foe. All sorts of demons and beasts serve Graz'zt. Generally, he favors the beautiful and the glib over the bestial and the crass. As mentioned prior, he has lamias, succubi, harpies, tieflings, cambions, half-fiends, and all other creatures that result from the dalliance between such rapacious demons and mortal visitors to the realm. He has legions of armies, but his favored minions are his children. Graz'zt's offspring are minor despots, murderers, and monsters that live throughout the multiverse. The Dark Prince is nothing if not fecund. These offspring are relatively minor, and even Graz'zt isn't sure of all of their locations and current well-being. Only a relative few warrant his particular attention. Perhaps the most notable of all of his children is actually one he had with Iggwilv, Iggwilv, the demigod of deceit, evil, oppression, pain, and wickedness. Like his father and mother before him, Iggwilv was originally a strikingly handsome cambion, but in the epic battle that resulted from Graz'zt striking out against Iggwilv in a bid for his freedom, Iggwilv's handsome form was split into two halves. He can either appear in the form of a gnarled old human male or as a bloated, red-skinned demonic figure. Iggwilv exists in the Greyhawk setting, and he is one of the most treacherous villains in all of Greyhawk lore. Graz'zt, the master tactician, has been growing in power ever since he arrived into the Abyss. He has been taking more and more and more. He controls the largest kingdom in all of the Abyss. He has the greatest traits of both demons and devils, and he is already on the same power levels as beings like the Prince of Demons, Demogorgon, and others like Orcus. But Graz'zt has something these two others do not have: calculated ambition, and schemes that span centuries. It would be a terrible thing if Graz'zt was able to overcome his long-term enemy, the Prince of Demons, Demogorgon. For if Graz'zt held that helm, he would not try to destroy the multiverse, the Abyss, and the material plane, like some of his counterparts. In Graz'zt's eyes, he is due the universe as a great plaything. If he would ever become the one to rule the Abyss completely, it would be the first step in an inevitable line where he ascends to dominate the cosmos, and all those left alive will be the ones who learn to love and worship the Dark Prince. Thank you so much for watching this video on the Demon Prince Graz'zt. If you have any other ideas for videos that you'd like to see D&D lore subjects done on, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching.